What's up, everybody? CHM Carnivores here. I hope you're having a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Now today in this video I want to talk about grow tents. I've gotten a lot of questions on how my grow tent is set up, and I want to go over those things with you. Now when it comes to the world of carnivorous plants, you can go all out and spend just about as much money as you want, but the whole purpose of this channel was to show how just everyday people like myself can grow these amazing plants and have success and be able to enjoy them in their lives. And so that is what I'm going to show you today. The setup I'm going to show you works for me. I'm also going to talk about what other setups you could use. If you can't necessarily afford or have the space for a grow tent, you can be just as successful. I hope that you enjoy this video. It's coming at you just now. Stick around. All right, so first thing on the agenda is picking the grow tent. Now some things you want to consider is what size space do you have available for that grow tent, and where are you going to grow the grow tent? Now, if you have Nepenthes that you buy at these suppliers that tend to be pretty small, it can be a little bit misleading. You think that they're going to stay small. With Nepenthes, they'll stay small for a little bit, but then they'll start catching size, and about adolescence phase is when they'll start making some big jumps. So you want to understand how many plants you have, and don't think about how the size they are now, but think about the size they can be. Now, what I recommend is looking up these plants, if they're hybrids, looking up the parent plants and seeing how big they get, not how big they are. That'll help you determine what you can do. Now, if you're confined to your spaces, obviously that changes things, and you want to add that into your plan. There are some diminutive size Nepenthes that you can buy, like a Glabrata or Ampullarias, anything of that nature, but that will also depend on how you can grow. The next thing you want to know is, what kind of grow tent do you want to have? Do you want a highlands tent? Do you want an intermediate tent? Or do you want a lowlands? Now, a grow tent in itself will give you a nice environment, but it's not going to meet all the specs that you'll need to grow certain plants. For instance, if you have ultra highland Nepenthes, chances are, well, more than likely you're not going to be able to grow those in a grow tent unless you have things like a freezer that you can use and augment that to grow highland Nepenthes, or if you have it in a very small air conditioner controlled room where you can adjust the nighttime temperatures. Now, with ultra lowlands, same thing. If you live in a very hot environment and you're going to have a grow tent somewhere that's outside or sub outside, like a back porch, you might be able to get away with growing them. But intermediate seems to be the sweet spot when it comes to grow tents. However, with that being said, I have seen people have wild success growing highland Nepenthes and lowland Nepenthes inside the intermediate conditions. It is a little tougher, and some of those lowland Nepenthes can get very, very large, like Bicalcarata, and so you want to understand that. They also won't grow as effective as they would in their natural habitat as far as the temperatures and humidity goes. So if you are going to buy something like a Bical or an Ampullaria and keep it in the intermediate conditions, please understand that is not optimal for it, and it may not grow to the best of its ability, but it will more than likely still grow for you. Now, when it comes to grow tents, the sky's the limit on what you want to buy. You can, just like anything else in the Nepenthes world or carnivorous plant world, you can spend exorbitant amounts of money. I find that the best place to get these are on Amazon. So this particular tent, which is 8 foot by 4 foot by 7 foot, cost me around, I believe it was $84, and it does just a trick. Now, because of the amount of plants I have, I'm going to have to end up buying more, but you can also buy grow tent kits, which might be an option for you. I will tell you they tend to upcharge on the lights and everything like that, so be careful of that. If you already have lights, there is no need to go ahead and buy those kits, but those things will have things like outlets for your ports and stuff that you have for your, so it draws, it makes for air circulations. As you can see, I just use fans. And so it just all depends on what your budget is and what you're willing to spend. Again, the whole point of this channel was to be able to provide people like me the ability to grow these plants in their home or around their home and have success with it without having to break the bank. And so that is what I want to talk about today. So as far as grow tents go, sky's the limit, but things to consider is, again, just make sure you have the space to grow them. Understand that the plants you have will get much larger. And then also, you can spend exorbitant amounts, but they're pretty much all the same. So this one was $84 for this size. I think that's really good. Now let's talk about lights. So out of everything that you can get carried away with besides the plants themselves, when it comes to your setup, it's going to be grow lights. You can spend absolutely thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on these lights. But again, this channel is for people like me who want to have a good budget and be able to grow these plants. The lights I use are called Ficida. They were rated the #1 grow light according to them. Their ratings are very good, almost 5 out of 5 stars, several thousand purchases. I myself have had absolutely no complaints with them. I love them. They cost about $45 to $48. I don't remember the exact amount, and I get them on Amazon. They are linkable, which makes it very, very good for setups like this. But when it comes to grow lights, you want to decide what you need. If you have a very large area, you're going to need a more powerful grow light, or you're going to need multiples of the same grow light. Now, you do need to do your research and look at lumens and all those different things and the number of diodes in your lights, because that is important. You don't want to get a grow light that's underperforming and it's going to cause an issue. So obviously do your homework of that, but don't get carried away needing to buy these exorbitantly expensive grow lights when you can do just fine with more of an economic choice. So the important thing with grow lights is you want to make sure that it's providing enough lumens. Normally, depending on the power of the grow light, 1 to 2 feet, 3 feet, you start losing power. So you want to make sure that your setup is able to is conducive to that. So what I have done is I've got a table in here where I place a lot of my plants, and then I also have a grow wall, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that helps me sort of get that lift up of some of the plants that need more light, and it also gives me more space in the middle of the tent, even though I'm running out of that. So let's talk about humidity, how we gauge that, what you can do in sprayers. So when it comes to getting humidity and the temperature just right in your grow tent, there's a lot of things you can do. There are some cheap misters that you can use that people use in frog or in terrarium enclosures that can run you, 40, 50, 60 bucks, and you'll just have to provide like a water reservoir to be able to grow those, and they do just fine. Now, the drawback to a mister is if something goes wrong or the pump fails, you're going to flood your plants, and I've heard a lot of horror stories of people doing that, and they end up overwatering inadvertently and killing their plants. One thing that you can do to avoid that is just make sure the reservoir you're filling is not full enough to be able to have that happen. The misters also help if you're on vacation. They make a big difference. The other things you can do there are saturation pads. Pings and Things uses this with great success. So do a lot of other growers, where the pad sits on the bottom and it's almost like a foam consistency, and you water that, and then the plants and the sphagnum moss wick the water up. That's pretty effective as well. Or you can do what I just do when I'm not on vacation, and I just use a regular misting bottle, spray bottle, and I spray it down about every other day, and then I give it about once a week a good pour to saturate the media. Again, sky's the limit on what you want to do, but that seems to work just fine. I just have a regular old spray bottle that you would get like at Home Depot. It's half gallon. There it is. And so it just does just fine. Here's another point of fact. I actually have a dehumidifier in my house, and there's the little tank right there. And so it makes condensation, and that's all the water I've used the entire time I've been growing these plants. You can get things like wet walls, you can do swamp coolers, you can do all sorts of things. But you know what? This is free, unlimited water. My house stays nice and dry-ish, where we want it to be without any nosebleeds. But I'm also able to supply unlimited water to my plants. Just a little helpful hint there. So talking about temperatures, let's talk about what's right for you. And again, if you're trying to grow intermediate towards lowland or intermediate towards highland, it's going to greatly change how you grow your plants and what you decide to use for your grow tent setup. Now, if you have plants that are more intermediate to highland, you can get a smaller swamp cooler that can help. They are a little expensive, but you can buy refurbished ones for about 175, 200 bucks that you can pump into your tent that will help drop the nighttime temperatures. I'm able to do so because this is in an air-conditioned shed, and so that AC is allowed to get those temperatures down if I needed it to. I don't need it to. I just need it to stay at a decent, very normalized temperatures for me, because I don't have any ultra highland or highland Nepenthes. I do have a Rob Cantley eye, but it'll do okay in intermediate. Honestly, it would be growing better if it was in highland conditions, but it is what it is. You want to keep your humidity. It can do well just between 60 to even 80% humidity. Ideally, if you can get it higher than 80%, they're going to love that. But I have found personally that's very hard to do in my setup, but they do just fine in the 60 to 80 range. Now, intermediates can withstand a huge range of temperatures. I keep mine around 75 degrees. Sometimes on a hot day, because it is in a shed, it'll get up to almost 83 degrees, and on a cold day, it will get down as low as in the 50s, and they do just fine. Now, anything lower than that, you're running a risk, and so you need to be careful of that. Anything higher than that, they'll do fine. A lot of these Nepenthes and intermediates can get up to even 100 degrees for short period of times and be just fine. But the biggest thing is you want to do your homework, and you want to understand what plants it is that you want to grow, what you're interested in, and do you have the ability to emulate those conditions, at least within a reasonable level, to be able to grow these beautiful plants. Now, let me show you one other tips and trick. I get a lot of questions on this, and that is my grow rack. And so I want to show that to you and explain it to you. It's not as exciting as it sounds, but I'm going to show you why I'm able to use this and how it helps me grow plants in a relatively confined space. So right here is the grow rack. Now, this is not something that I bought for specifically for growing Nepenthes. This is just a shoe rack that I got at a garage sale, but it does help out a lot, and it allows me to grow plants not only on the ground but up the wall. Now, one thing you need to know is this is not going to be a forever remedy. These plants will get big and they will start growing on top of each other, and so I need to be ready for that. But what it does do is allow me to place the plants in order where they need light and how it best works for me. And so I've got my stenophylas and my IMAs up here to get more light, where I've got some of my other plants that are less light craving down at the bottom and are doing just fine. The cool thing about this is when you're in a limited space, it provides you with an sort of a vertical wall where it allows me to have more plants. Again, this is not a foolproof method and it won't last forever. Eventually, this will need to be replaced with something as I get my plants larger. All right, last but not least, let's talk about air circulation. Now, as I said earlier in the video, you can buy these kits that have little pumps and they have these little tubes and they pull the bad air and they pull the air in and they do all these airflows. If you want to get that invested in it, you can, but I'm telling you, fans are just as good. And so what I have done is I've placed fans at the corners of my grow tent that help out with getting the amount of air circulation that I need. You don't want to point them directly on the fans because directly on the plants, because that will dry the plants out faster. You want the wind to go sort of right over the top of the plants so it hits that base of the plant but does not dry them out. This is also going to mimic a lot of the plant's conditions in the wild as they're up in the ultramafic areas and they sort of the wind blows over top. And one more thing about humidity, and this ties in with the airflow, is I use a humidifier that does just fine. I have for about 40 bucks, got a small, large room humidifier that I have on the lowest setting, and I've got one of my fans in front of that, and so as it humidifies, the fan pulls the humidity out and evenly distributes it around the grow tent, and then the fans also circulate that. So, all told, I would say I've probably spent, in my best estimations, I could be off here, probably $300-400 bucks on the complete setup, and that's probably on the high end. So I have done this and I've committed to do this very, very cheap. My wallet is also more committed than I am in that case, but it just wanted to show you that you can absolutely grow these plants and enjoy these plants without breaking the bank and without spending so much money. Now, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. There are a ton of gatekeepers in this hobby for whatever reason, and I don't quite understand it. My job here at CHM Carnivores is to make this doable for you as it was for me, and to grow these amazing plants. I wasted a lot of years not growing them because I was scared to do so. And that is because I listened to the gatekeepers and did not grow these plants. There is a very easily ability to grow them. You can grow them in terrariums, you can grow them on your windowsill, you can grow them in your house. There is almost an unlimited amount of ways that you can grow them, and I will be gladly able and willing to help you through that. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to comment or ask me a question directly through DM on Instagram, and I will work with you and help you through the process. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want you to have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon.